I have been to Minnesota only on my way to somewhere else, and your
Mm-hmm.
airport is beautiful,
Yes, it
but
is.
I'm from Portland. We also have a very beautiful airport. We have a little bit of a competition. Whenever I post about my airport, people from your state are like, our airport is prettier. And I'm like, we have llamas.
You
Uh,
have llamas at your airport?
There are therapy llamas at the
Oh,
Portland
I have
airport.
to give it to you. And there's always been this sort of like long-standing competition, I think, between Minneapolis and Portland. I used to be chief of staff for the mayor of Minneapolis, and he always would get so huffy when somebody would suggest that Portland was a great biking city or a great running city or a great food city. And he'd be like, what about Minneapolis? What about us? So we got maybe a little chip on our shoulder.
I like the friendly competition,
Yes.
but it's also perfect segue for me to ask you in relation to the airport situation,
Hmm.
because a lot of people are now starting to see how, even if they're not on government aid, things like flight delays are going to affect them. And so
Hmm.
the last shutdown that we had, that was the longest shutdown in history of like
Hmm.
over 30 days. My understanding is that it ended because of the air traffic controller
Hmm.
finally, I don't know how it worked out, but I guess what I'm asking is what do you think about what's happening right now in terms of the flight delays and things that are affecting people that are not necessarily thinking that they will be affected because they're not on government aid and they're like, oh, this is not with me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so it's two bad things, right? Government shutdowns are bad, and we don't like them. And I would do everything I could to get out of this one. And what you're saying is really true because, air traffic controllers will miss their first paycheck probably sometime next week, but they still have to go to work. And they still have to put groceries on the table, and they still have to pay for their family's childcare. And what happened the last time is just a lot of them sort of weren't able to come to work anymore. And it created a big problem. But here we have a very difficult situation because, we have the badness of the federal government being shut down and federal workers working without pay. And on the other hand, we have the badness of millions of Americans trying to figure out how to afford their health insurance and not being and realizing that with these tax credits expiring, that they're not going to be able to afford their health insurance. And that is also going to affect all of us because if a bunch of people in your town lose their health insurance, they're still going to get sick. They're still going to need to get health care, but they won't be able to afford it. And then what ends up happening is they go to emergency rooms and it ends up driving up the cost for all of us, not like just in the long term, but in the medium term. And of course, this whole thing is just completely avoidable. The government is shut down because the majority party in Congress, controls the Congress, controls the White House. The Republicans won't even talk to us about how we can get out of this mess. And so the first thing that has to happen is we have to talk to each other and find a path forward because trust me, the people that are losing their health insurance, they don't wake up every day and go, oh, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican or I'm an independent. They're like, I can't afford my health care. What am I going to do? How am I going to take care of my kids?
I completely agree with you. And I want to ask for your thoughts on what everyday people can do, because
Hmm.
as you mentioned, a lot of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle, especially,
Right.
are not even in Washington. The Republicans from the House of Representatives are on vacation in their
Hmm.
own states, and the Senate is still trying to talk.
Hmm.
But I'm starting to see that some Republicans from the House coming are voicing their frustrations out loud
Yes.
on social
Yes.
media platforms. It's a little strange to be on the in agreement with some of these people,
That's
but
right.
it means that it, like you said, it affects a lot of us. What can everyday people do to put pressure on the Republicans to talk to you or to
Yes.
fix this mess?
Yes, yes, that is, and I think that is exactly the right question. People should be just urging like stop arguing and start talking so that we can find a path forward. So I will tell you, I know right now that because I pay very close attention, like pretty much every member of Congress does, I pay really close attention to who's reaching out to my office and what they want to tell me, whether they're calling in to the front desk or whether they're sending an email or whether they're coming by the office. I track that and I keep track of whether they're pro or con. And I know right now that in my office, the vast majority of people who are reaching out to me are saying, keep on fighting. This is too important. It's really, I'm glad that you're standing strong. And I know that Republicans do the same thing. They also keep track of who reaches out to their office and they pay attention. And I think that they're feeling a lot of pressure right now because they're also hearing from people that their health insurance costs are going up so dramatically, and they're also hearing that they can't afford it. And so delivering that message is actually a really powerful thing. Sometimes it feels like it's not that big of a deal, but it's something that is really noticed and counted by most members of Congress.
Thank you for that. You mentioned specifically, for example, air traffic controllers have to continue going to work, but
Hmm.
they're not going to get paid until the
Hmm.
shutdown is over. Yet it's not like they can delay paying for their groceries or their rent or their car.
Right.
And that's going to put a lot of pressure on a lot of people. There are some headlines that I think are scaring people. And if I explain it, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a computer engineer. So they're not gonna believe
I'm
maybe
not
what
a
I
lawyer
say.
either, so it's okay.
But you work in government, so you are a more trusted voice here when they are panicking over headlines like this yesterday or this week that furloughed employees might not even get paid. That the White
Mhm.
House saying that they're not going to get paid. From my understanding, that's not legal, but how do we calm people down and not let them freak out over this?
Yeah, well, so part of what I think is happening here, and this is what I tell people all the time, is I think that the Trump administration is just throwing a bunch of things out there to try to distract from the fact that it's because of them that people's health insurance premiums are going up so much. And let's also remember that it was Donald Trump who signed the law that Congress passed after the last big shutdown, saying that it is the law that federal employees would be paid at the end of a shutdown. So it's, I mean, he signed the law. And it's confusing and it feels very chaotic when all these things get put out and there's all these contradictions. They say one thing and then 4 hours later they say something else. So I would just say to folks that, we are going to be here to fight to make sure every day that this administration follows the law and they do what they're supposed to do. And, I would also just say that there are a lot of people that are contractors to the federal government, and many of those folks are the people that clean the buildings and take, and cook the food and do really important work to make federal employees' jobs work. But federal contractors do not get back pay, and a lot of these folks tend to be very low wage workers, and that's wrong. And I actually am working on a bill. I have a bill to try to fix that. So it will not be completely fair at the end of the day, no matter what happens.
Thank you for that. I didn't know that they didn't get back pay. You brought out another question that I have because we've had four shutdowns in the last 10 years, all when
Hmm.
Trump has been president.
Yep.
And it is a little frustrating to see this.
Hmm.
Why is it so hard for Congress to agree on a budget if the deadline is always on September 30th
I know.
and it's
I
always
know.
under Republicans that this seems to happen? Like,
Yeah.
why does it keep happening?
Well, I mean, I totally agree with you. I find it so frustrating too. And before I came to the Senate, I worked at the state government and I worked in local government and I ran my own business before all of that. And so it wasn't a question of if you passed a budget or you followed a budget. That's just what you did. You had to do it. But I'm glad you pointed out something really important, which is even when Republicans were in charge of Congress and President Biden was the president, we still figured out how to get a budget done. And that's because we talked to each other. We realized that we were going to have to negotiate, that we weren't going to get everything that we wanted because we had to negotiate with people who had different ideas. But yet, here we are, where it's kind of a my road or the high road attitude. And I mean, I'm like, if you want me to vote for you, you've got to I got to be voting for something that I don't think is going to hurt my constituents. And it's pretty simple. That's how democratic governments work. You know, you have to get the votes in order to pass laws. And they don't seem to get that. I
They
hope they are, though.
behave
I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, sooner or later, they're going to have to understand. And I hope it's sooner because you're making such good points. It hurts people when the federal government isn't there to do all of the things that folks count on it to do.
Thank you. For normal people that don't follow politics, what is going on?
Well, first of all, I would say, like, if you're like a normal person who doesn't follow politics and you're wondering why half of the United States Congress isn't showing up for work, like, the problem is Congress, not you, for not understanding, because that is not normal. Uh, the U.S. House of Representatives hasn't met since September 18th, I think. The Speaker of the House, Speaker Johnson, adjourned everybody and sent them home. And there's a lot of discussion about why that is. I think one open question is whether he's trying to avoid a vote to release the Epstein files, because now there are lots of Republicans and Democrats that are voting to release those files, and that would be a vote he'd have to deal with. I don't know. I can't read his heart and mind, but that's one issue out there. And then, of course, the other issues that some people think if you got all of us together in one place, that we'd be more likely to have a conversation. We'd be more likely, member to member, to start to try to work on a solution. I mean, even Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I disagree with on almost everything, has been saying that she thinks this is stupid and that we ought to agree to extend these tax credits so people can afford their health insurance. And maybe if there were more people, more Republicans in Washington, we'd be more likely to get a deal. And, I think that would be good.
Follow-up question, because you mentioned the Epstein files. If for some miracle there are enough votes, he swears in Adelita Grijalva from Arizona 7 so that he
Yeah.
has enough votes. Does that have to go into the Senate for the files to be released, or is that only a House of Representatives thing?
It does have to go into the Senate too. Right. Yes, it would have to go into the Senate as well. I think it would be a big blow, because if they had that vote in the House. And by the way, how ridiculous is it that he is refusing to swear in Representative-elect Grijalva, who was elected, like, how long ago was it now? And this is, again, just sort of so blatantly partisan. When Republicans won special elections, they were immediately sworn in. And yet Representative Grijalva has been waiting and waiting. And that's just so disrespectful to the voters of Arizona in her district, whose voices, I mean, even if they're not in session, she should be sworn in so she can get to work.
Senator Smith, I want to check how we are with time.
I think I need to.
Yeah, I think we
I
need
think I need to. I think I need to say goodbye. But thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's such a wonderful opportunity to talk with you. And
Thank you.
hello
It's
to
an
all of
honor.
your followers. Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Bye.